Hello, everybody. This is Jack Hammer from the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, and welcome to today's show. It's going to be, we'll name it the Friday Football Forecast. We don't know exactly what we're forecasting yet, but uh, like I said, I'm Jack Hammer. Today, I've got Coach Noah Johnson joining me. How you doing, Coach?
Doing good.
A lot of different stuff going on around the NFL with the Super Bowl coming up, and real quick before we get started, just want to shout out Tristan. Yo, Tristan, hope you're doing well, and same with Peter. It's going good. It's a Friday. Looking forward to the weekend. And I heard there's a big game coming up this weekend. I'm not sure who's playing it or anything like that. I know it's not the 49ers. I'm kidding. But it's good. It should be good. But Coach and I were just chatting a little bit. And as you know, a lot of crazy stuff happens around the Super Bowl. You get folks in front of the media that don't usually talk to people. And as they're out there trying to pitch some brand or something like that. And yesterday, a 49er great got caught up in all of the hoopla when Joe Montana was being interviewed, and he said that Trey Lance wasn't. He'd been told that Trey Lance isn't ready to go, and that the 49ers should keep Jimmy Garoppolo or find somebody that can fill in for him throughout the course of the year here in 2022. So the first topic that we have to discuss today is Trey Lance ready to play?
I think so. I mean, I've been advocating that he should play since the beginning of the year. But with that said, if he wasn't ready for me, if he wasn't ready at the beginning of the year, I think he should be ready now or by the time that next year starts, right? Because so there's no games. They're not playing any games in February, right? So he's got another eight months to if he's not ready to get ready, including 4 preseason games and the offseason, all of that. So yeah, I think he'll be. I think he'll be ready. I think he's ready now.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I didn't feel like Lance was ready to start week one. I know a lot of folks did, but I didn't feel like he was ready to start then. And then I liked the route that the 49ers took with him and the developmental route that they went with him with getting him away from the field. I know they tried to play him a little bit early on. It didn't really work out the way that Kyle Shanahan wanted it to, but so they backed off of that. But when you look at Trey Lance and you see his 2 starts, you see him in week 5, and then you transition and you see what he did in week 17. Yeah, obviously Houston's not the Arizona Cardinals or what have you, what Arizona was back in week 5, but you could see growth out of Lance's play. So I feel like he's in a good spot.
But the thing is that the Arizona, I mean, the Houston Texans are still an NFL team. Like it's not like he was out there beating, like Arkansas Pine Bluff. Like they're an NFL team, right? So, I mean, and they beat them pretty handily. So, and then I think we both have our issues with how he was used when he was playing against the Cardinals, but they were in that game when they played them, and I think looking back at it and now reading some of the stuff, maybe some of the reason why he was used that way was because of his hand. I don't know, but it seems pretty obvious he's capable of being out there on the field, right? Like the
Yeah,
level, the question is just like what level is he going to play? Is he going to continue to grow? Is he going to be is he going to be a star? I don't know, but I think he's capable of playing. And generally, I think if you look at the rookies from last year, I think they all were capable to me. I mean, they're all capable of playing. Zach Wilson was playing pretty well by the end of the year. I mean, Lawrence threw a bunch of picks, but he's on a terrible, terrible team. I mean, we saw flashes with Justin Fields, and then Mac Jones. Obviously, he was on the Patriots team, went to playoffs. So I think for the most part, the rookie class looked pretty good. Like they're capable of playing.
yeah. I feel like going into 2022, if Trey Lance is the starter and that's the route they take, which most likely that's what's going to happen. It's highly unlikely that Tom Brady is going to end up as a 49er, which is one of the topics that people have been talking about because of uh, the comments that, well, it started off with Brady saying never say never, and then it went to Scott Zolak's comments as far as him coming to the 49ers would make sense, and it just kind of took on an energy of its own, and it's a great conversation to have at this time of the year because there's not a whole lot of football stuff going on. We had 49ers, other than coaching news, haven't signed any players, anything like that, and they haven't traded Jimmy Garoppolo yet. So it's a fun topic, but it's going to be Trey Lance in 2022, and I feel like I feel comfortable in saying that the quarterback position won't experience a drop off next season. There might be a little bit early in the season or like in parts of games at the beginning, but I think as the season goes along, I think you're going to see that the overall play at the quarterback position is going to come out to be about the same from a throwing perspective.
I think it's going to be different, but it's going to be different, but it'll be the same, or it might be better, depending on his growth. But like obviously there's going to be, I think everyone knows there's going to be more deep shots. There's the quarterback run game that's going to be involved, and then you know Jimmy has a quick release. I don't think Lance is up there. So you might suffer a little bit in the short passing game, maybe the intermediate, because we all know that, right. That's one of the things that Lance has to work on, is working in the middle of the field and make some of those throws. But there will be an added element, which will be the deep ball.
Yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously he's had a really nice quick release. Lance isn't there, but I think Lance makes up for a little bit with the tempo that he puts on the ball, and I just feel like he's a guy there's going to be the offense is going to look very similar. There's going to be slight differences. You mentioned the running game with Lance, and I sure hope that they don't do that with him. I hope that they just utilize him as a quarterback and then every once in a while maybe have it use his legs, but not to the extent that they were trying to do in his two starts.
No, I don't want to run him like a running back, but I think using him enough to where it's a threat to the defense, and they have to game plan for it. Like that's how much I would use it, because ultimately I do think you have to win. You have to win from the pocket. Like that's how the NFL game is played. But I think it'd be kind of stupid to not utilize that element to his game, because it's there. I mean, and you can also use it, and you doesn't necessarily just have to be running. I mean, you could use rollouts and quarterback movement. I mean, that's all stuff that's important. I think the biggest thing, which he can bring, which he's shown in college, and we only have a 2-game sample size, but it seems to be what he does is he protects the football. And I think if he does that, I think that can really help not just the offense, but just the team in general. If they can take some of those turnovers away and lessen them, I think overall they can win some of those games that they didn't win.
Yeah, it's funny. It's interesting that you bring that up. He protects the ball scenario. That's something that a lot of folks talked about with Lance coming out of North Dakota State because of his low interception totals. He's had 2 interceptions in his 2 starts, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. He had the interception at the beginning of the game against Arizona. He had one in the first half against Houston. His interception percentage was right around the same as what Jimmy Garoppolo's was. Obviously, we're talking about a much smaller sample size. So that's why I said I think we're going to see. I think we're going to see a lot of similarity in the overall numbers at the end of the season. I think you might see a little bit lower interception percentage. The touchdown percentage is going to be a little bit higher, but the overall passing game is probably going to be slightly better. I just feel like it's going to be better. So we'll see how it works out.
Yeah. Well, also I would also almost compare whatever when you're looking at Trey next year, is compare his first half to his second half, or even by quarterly, because there should be like a pretty clear progression. I mean, probably maybe it's not as much clear as if he played this year, but experience definitely plays a role. I mentioned Zach Wilson before. Like I believe Zach Wilson didn't throw an interception the entire month of December when he was throwing a bunch earlier. So, I think there is going to be some, I don't know to what extent, but there is going to be some learning curve. And I would expect Trey's going to look better in December, November than he did in September.
I agree with that. We saw him look better just in the Texans game from one half to the next. And so I think as he plays, he's gonna get used to the speed of the game, and he's gonna get used to what he's seeing. He's gonna start trusting his eyes, or what he's being told on the headset a little bit more, and he's gonna do better. I think that's what we'll see from him. Um, Nick says experts say that Trey is still a one-read quarterback. Regardless, aren't John and Kyle responsible for drafting him and must play him? I don't. Go ahead. I'll let you answer that.
From what I saw of him in college, he wasn't a one read quarterback. I mean, I think I think there might be some there's some racial connotations to some of that, and maybe the fact that he played in North Dakota State and was, you know, in a very run centric and offense where they didn't throw a lot. But I don't know. All the people that I talk with and I've seen say he's not a one read quarterback. Now, there's a very small sample size. There's no arguing that, but I don't see a one read quarterback, and most of the people that I watch say the same thing.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's a one-read guy. I do think that when you watch his Texans film, you don't see his head moving much, at least as much as what you see with Garoppolo from side to side. That doesn't necessarily mean that Garoppolo's always reading the field across as much as maybe he's just trying to draw defenders to one side of the field so it can open up something else. There's lots of reasons why guys are moving their eyes when it comes to quarterback. So
Yeah,
I don't agree that Lance is a one read quarterback. I think he has the ability to get through progressions. It's a process, and uh, like I said, we saw him improve and take steps from college through to week 5 and then through week 17, his next start. So uh, I definitely think that yes, they must play him, and I think that's what the plan is coming up uh, for 2022. That's the direction they're taking. Uh, let's stay on the quarterback topic though. Now, potential landing spots for Jimmy Garoppolo. Where are some places that you think Jimmy G may end up?
if I had to bet, I think the for me probably the top two would be Washington and Pittsburgh. Um, just that I think Washington needs. I think Rivera, the head coach of Washington, I don't know that I don't know how much more time he's going to get with that team. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Now he's been there when they've had to go through some garbage, um, but and they've built a roster where I think they want to kind of they want to win now and um, at least make the play, get in the playoffs again. I think they made it in last year, right? Did they made the playoffs last year and then they got bounced out? I think. Um, but
Yes, they made it in 2020 and got beat by Tampa.
Yep. So I think they're looking to make a move there. And I don't know how many of those guys that are out there on the market are like excited to go to Washington. So I think maybe that might be one of the places where, and plus Jimmy Garoppolo fits that bill. Give him a running game and defense, and he can he can do enough. Um, and then Pittsburgh, obviously, everyone's throwing that out there. Roethlisberger retired. They need a quarterback. Um, give him a defense, and they have Najee Harris now, and hopefully they want to run the football. They can get back to some of their roots.
Yeah, I agree. Real quick before I give mine, I'm gonna say just real quick to this because is telling Josh telling this guy to go over and watch some other guys' videos. If you want to watch Trey Lance versus the Houston Texans, just go to my YouTube channel. It's all broken down over there. Don't go anywhere else. I've already got the breakdowns for Trey Lance. There's no need to go anywhere else. Do them every week with Grant. I think it's on my channel. If it's not there, go to Grant's uh, and you'll have my view on it because I don't know. I'm going to toot my own horn. No, but so you said you go with Washington and who is the other one real quick?
Washington and Pittsburgh.
And Pittsburgh. Yeah, everybody's talking about the Pittsburgh one. I would say I do agree that both those are good landing spots. The one for me that nobody's talking about that I think is a good spot. It was actually I had it in a tweet a couple of weeks ago, responding to somebody else about this, and uh, Mike Sando from the Athletic actually mentioned it this week. It's the Indianapolis Colts. I think the Colts is a perfect landing spot for Jimmy Garoppolo, given their run game and the defense that they have over there. Uh, it's kind of an outside the box because they did just pull off the trade for Carson Wentz. But if you remember at the end of the season, there were some comments from their general manager that uh, they weren't too happy with the way that whole thing played out, kind of making it sound like the whole Carson Wentz um, experience was a failure in a way. I don't think that's the words that they used, but I don't think they're happy with him. So maybe that's a spot that they look to upgrade their quarterback room. Uh, he is under contract for 3 more years, but they can get out of his contract this year, save $15 million on the cap, uh, and move on from Carson Wentz if they choose to.
Yeah, I think the Jimmy Garoppolo domino is probably it's going to be one of the latter ones to fall because teams are going to pursue the big names like Russell Wilson. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Deshaun Watson's off the field stuff, but if that ever clears up, then he's going to be a big target for teams. And maybe some teams, there might be some carriers that might not be afraid. I mean, I think they are, but there might be a team that just might pull the trigger on that, especially if the Texans just want to get rid of him and give me whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So those are names I think are going to kind of work themselves out first before it gets to Jimmy. Because obviously, there's not a really comparison between Jimmy and Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I think it's going to be what you got Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. I think is the other
Right,
domino that.
Sorry, I forgot about Rodgers. Of course, Rodgers. If Rodgers is going to move, then him and Wilson are going to be the two big ones that people are going to pursue first. Like if you can get Rodgers or Wilson, like you're going to go with them over Garoppolo. But then after that market works itself out, then I think teams will look towards Jimmy Garoppolo. And then I think there are certain, I do think a team like Tampa would not pursue Jimmy. I think they would just go with a rookie or someone that kind of fits what Arians wants to do.
Yeah, I think that I think that Garoppolo is probably going to be still going to be one of the early guys traded. I think he might be traded before all those guys because I think teams are going to reach out to Green Bay and Seattle and probably get rebuffed early on. Another landing spot for Garoppolo that you didn't mention that I think would be a fit as well is up in Denver with the Broncos. If they decide that they want to get a quarterback, I think he fits up there. The system, we know the system works for him because it's the system that he's run. So that's another landing spot. The Tampa Bay one is also one that everybody keeps talking about. I understand the reasons why it doesn't work.
Yeah, and Carolina, I think too. Carolina they've been looking for a quarterback for the last 2 years. So they're looking to make a splash, a big name, and they've been tied to Watson, and I think even Wilson. Like they want to make a big name splash, but if they get stuck in musical chairs, Jimmy Garoppolo might be the one because they really do want a quarterback. And again, Matt Rule, I'm not sure how much time he has left. He fired his offense coordinator and all that stuff. He wants to run the football. They have Christian McCaffrey, so that could also be a fit there.
Yeah, they have a pretty good defense too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so he'd be a good fit there too. So that's one that I hadn't heard. That's a good. I think I don't think people are really bringing that one up that much because they look at it in kind of the same way as Indianapolis, right? Indianapolis just traded for Wentz. Carolina just traded for Sam Darnold, and they picked up his 5th-year option, so they're stuck with him for the year on a guarantee unless they can trade him.
Yeah, they did, but I think it's his salary. I want to say it's $10 million, and then if you look at what they did this past year, they benched him. Then they played they don't have a lot of confidence in him right now. So I think they're going to look to move off him, and it's not like they paid a huge price for him either.
Right. The cost in terms of the cost in terms of the draft capital wasn't much, but they're on the hook for him this year at $18.8 million.
Oh, really?
Is his 5th-year option for the quarter?
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a big number, but that doesn't mean, like you said, they they can move him. If somebody's willing to take 18 million, they can move it. Otherwise, they'll just eat it and get rid of him after this year because he is on a. It's only 1 year deal,
Yeah.
So do they? Maybe they decide that they're going to move off of Darnold and bring Garoppolo in. That makes sense. I do like that move. That's a good spot for him in terms of, like you said, of the fit with the offense, and it has a defense. So and plus the NFC South, other than Tampa Bay, has been pretty weak. There's really nobody that's a division this year going into this year. No Tom Brady, a new head coach in New Orleans. Atlanta's been a dumpster fire, and then you got Carolina. So that's a spot that you can go in and potentially
Yeah,
be
and
competing for a division.
especially I'd be interested to see what happens in New Orleans because I really think they need to kind of start cleaning their roster because they're really in cap hell and they need to start
Mm-hmm.
clearing clearing it out there. And now is a good time. Drew Brees retired, Sean Payton left, so good time to reset the roster. Um, and Jimmy wants to go to a place where he wants to win. I don't think the 49ers are going to just ship him to any old place. Like they're going to confirm, yes, he wants to go there before they just do it. I know. There's what the no trade clause is good until March, but I think they'll honor um, his representation in any trade.
Yeah, that's what they've said already too. They've said that they're willing to work with him and his representatives and get him a spot that works best for him, and I could see that being the case. So it'll be an interesting move with Garoppolo. It'll be I keep hearing his name brought up, Mike Florio talking about him coming back to the 49ers, but that ship sailed. So it's going to be interesting to see where he lands up and what the 49ers get in return.
Yep,
Uh, what do you think they're going to get, real quick, before we move off this?
man. I don't. I I've been pretty consistent with saying I don't think they're going to get much. Maybe a fourth, but I almost think what they'll probably do is maybe package him instead of just having a straight draft pick. It'll be like, oh, we'll give you a second and a second and our fourth or something like that, or a second and a third, and then you give us your first or something like that. I think they might use it not for a straight up draft pick, but to move up in the
Mm-hmm.
draft because they don't really have they don't need numbers. They kind of need. It'd be nice if they could hit on a player, like get a first round draft pick, and then have that guy plug and play.
Yeah, I think that the starting point for the 49ers should really be a third round pick this year and a um, what do you call it, a conditional second round the year after. And I'm basing that off of the Carson Wentz trade last
Yeah,
year between Indianapolis and Philly. I feel like I know there's people get there's it's funny because you talk about quarterbacks and there's these arguments, this guy is better than this guy, but when you get past like the first four, everybody else has their pluses and minuses, and there's really not one guy that really stands out. I mean, I remember hearing people talking about how good uh, the quarterback out in Tennessee was, and so on and so forth. And he's a very Jimmy Garoppolo esque quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. He can run a little bit better than Garoppolo, but he makes plenty of mistakes too. That's the reason
yeah,
why they lost in the first playoff game. Um, so I just feel like a third this year is the bird in the hand, and then you've got the one in the bush with the possible second round pick the year after.
yeah, makes sense. Like the
Yeah,
or like something conditional based on his because he's an injury plagued player. Maybe it's conditional upon how many games he plays. So
yeah, that's what it would be. It'd be based off of like snaps or something like that,
yeah,
percent of snaps of the season. I think that's what Wentz deal was, something like he had to play 75% of the snaps or
and he did.
eight. So yeah, and he did. So because I follow some folks from Philly, and that was one of the things they kept talking about. They were tracking it early in the year until they got to the point where they knew they were gonna. It was a done deal. Um, so we've covered the quarterbacks. Uh, Outside of the quarterbacks, what are some of the biggest needs you think the 49ers need to address this offseason?
I think it's the positions that are open because of free agency. It's left guard, Safety, um, left guard, safety. I mean, defensive tackle. I mean, I think they've proven that they can plug and play guys. They can find guys like. But I think that would be. Oh, I'm sorry, nickelback and nickel. Like those are the three like that they need to address because um, those are starting positions, and it's not just like it's not situational edge rusher. It's not your fourth corner or third corner. It's the nickel is essentially a starting corner because there's so many three wide receiver sets, and using nickels to defend tight ends. All that. It's essentially a starting position. So um, you need three starters.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I don't see Lakin Tomlinson coming back. I think somebody's going to overpay him for what he brings to the table. I've heard up to like if he gets over 10 or 12, you just wave goodbye and let him go because he's not worth that on an annual basis.
Yeah,
He's a good run blocker, not very good in pass protection. Uh, let him go, and it'll be interesting to see who they try to fill that role with. So that's the key. Is it Aaron Banks? Is it Daniel Brunskill? Is it Jalen Moore? Colton McKivitz? Who do they try to plug and play in that left spot if they don't draft somebody or sign somebody in free agency?
yeah. I mean, you'd like it to be Banks because you just spent a second last year, but I mean, I honestly like if they could play any of those guys and get equal production out of it, or be ideal, or they find another guy in free agency or via trade or something like that. They got Lakin from a trade before. Maybe they have something like that. I mentioned on Grand Show that Lynn might be an interesting name because maybe he has an offensive lineman in mind that he's coached that he thinks is could work. So that'd be an interesting. And then I mean, if you can, like, if you, I would like to see them if they could upgrade at the right guard spot too. I mean, that would be nice. I do think I would prioritize guard over all the other positions just because we just talked about um, they're starting their third overall draft pick from 2021, and this will be his first year starting, and I want to protect him. So like I don't want him to deal with a line full of holes and questions. So I would prioritize guard, and then work from there.
Yeah, that's I agree. I think they need to get a guard. That's guard. It would be one of the top. I think defensive tackle is up there as well. I think you might even see a defensive end in a way have to be a place that they're looking. Depending on what if they can get Jordan Willis to come back, or I think that kind of will help their need to bring somebody in off the bench. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah,
in the draft or free agency, because Jordan Willis has performed pretty well for the 49ers since he got here.
yeah. The thing about defensive end or this, and I do think they need another one, that can perform at a high level. However, they have Chris Kosrick, and he's shown that he's been able to take guys and get them to perform at their peak. Um, and if you look at the free agents that are out there at edge, there's a lot of them, and I think the 49ers should be a destination if you're a edge rusher that's looking to get paid and you need production. Come sign a 1 year cheap deal, play with Kosterick, play with Nick Bosa on the other side, and Kosterick and the system has proven that they can up your production. You come here, you show production, and then you leave the next year and you get paid.
Yeah,
That's why I wouldn't overpay for Arden Key or any of these guys. I would let the veterans or these guys, these underproductive guys, come to me because I've shown that I can give you something. I can give you production, which you can then use to get money.
yeah. The key one, take it for what it's worth, but over the cap values him at about $3.5 million for a new deal, which makes sense. That's right about what Kerry Hyder got from Seattle. And I just I would like to see him come back because he had a really good year in Area Ballers over in the comments here, and he was the one that he nailed it early on.
Yeah,
He
he
said
did.
that he felt like he was going to have a good year, and I chuckled at him and told him he was full of baloney. But then look who's right, you know. Uh, he's a pretty smart guy, Eric is. But I would like to see him back. When you start to look at he's a name that I'd like to see back. I think when you a lot of these guys, DJ Jones, uh, obviously Jaquaski Tart is another name. All these guys when you start to look at what they've been were paid last year, and then you look at what their contract valuations are on over the cap. They're not that far. It's almost like you can bring all those guys back. We're only looking like $1 million or $2 million of increase for some of these guys, and it'll be interesting to see if how close those play out.
Yeah, I would like to bring. I think ideally you'd like to bring Jaquaski back. It depends on what he fetches in the open market. If you want, and he's a free agent, so literally, if a team wanted to pay him $55,000 and the 49ers were going to offer him 150, he could take the 55 if he wants to. It's his decision. Um, so it's I'm sure he's going to be looking to get as much money as possible. So I'm I don't know him personally, but I'm guessing if the deals are close, he'll probably choose the 49ers. But if someone decides that they're going to really pay him, then he'll probably take that deal. But I think there's a lot of pluses. Like he knows, like familiarity for anybody. I think it's a big thing, right? Like people don't tend to change jobs because of job familiarity, right? Like companies. That's why companies, they offer minimum salary bonuses. If you look for a different job, chances are another company will pay you a lot more than your current company because they have to do that to get you to leave. And it's easier for your current company to just give you little increments because you don't really want to come out of your comfort zone. So same deal with there. Like he knows the system. He knows he can play well in the system. He's got a guy he's played with since high school at the other safety. So you know if he's not gonna someone's not gonna throw a huge contract at him, then I don't know why he wouldn't come back.
Yeah, and I don't foresee anybody. I don't think he's going to get a big deal. From what I understand, you've already done some looking into the free agent market. I know on the safety side, isn't there a pretty good amount of safeties that are coming out this year?
Yeah, for me there's like there's a bit. I think everyone's got Tyrann Mathieu and then Marcus Williams from the Saints up there. Like those are the two big ones that people have. Then you've got the guy from the guy from the Steeler Edwards. I like him a lot. He's out there on the market. Justin Reed. He's one of the names out there that I love. I would love if the 49ers signed Justin Reed. I think he'd be a great fit. He's the guy that if I had my druthers, that's the guy I would sign. He's got incredible range. He can play in the box. It's but I think he's going to command a decent sized contract. I think more than Jaquaski Tart. And I do think there's a lot of teams like I think Salah likes to play a lot of one high, and I think Seattle would ideally like to get back to that and really play that. So I think those two teams might really be interested in throwing some money at him because, in my opinion, I think he plays that one high, when they can get him into one high, like he can really play that because of his range. So I think if they can get Jaquaski back, I think the only thing with getting Jaquaski back is you have to have, and this is where I come back to the draft, and you have to have a solution for when he's out because he doesn't play entire season. So, and you have to expect that. So, what's your solution for when he's out? And I don't know. I personally would not trust Hufanga playing a lot of time there. I think Hufanga is a nice situational player. However, he's limited in what he can do. Ideally, you'd want another safety that you don't have to like start changing your defense a ton because of his limitations.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that, and I know you've talked about you've been high on Justin Reed, and I'd be high on him too, especially if you liked my tweet. That was pretty cool. I saw that. But I agree with you from a player standpoint with Justin Reed. He's a guy who impressed me when I watched him on film against the 49ers. You get the closing speed for with on a couple of those plays, uh, chasing down different guys, but in particular, Trey Lance on a couple of those quarterback runs. He's coming out of the middle of the field and just streaking across the field. It's like a blur. If there was a way that they could bring him in, that'd be fantastic. But I agree with you. I think he's going to be a little high in terms of his cost, and plus, as I had mentioned to you on a separate conversation, would he come to San Francisco? His brother left with not on the best of terms. Would that play a role into him you know coming to San Francisco or choosing not to? So
Yeah, I don't
it'll
know.
be yeah, no, but it's just something to think about when it comes in. But as you mentioned, and some of the folks in the comments mentioned, I think that if they can get Jaquaski Tart back on something in the $3.5 million range, you go ahead and you pull the trigger on that. If everything else is working out the way that you would expect, I think that's a good number for a player of his caliber and what he brings to the table for the 49ers.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, but the only caveat I would say is if you do bring, sorry, I'm gonna add some light here. If you do bring Jaquaski back, I think you have to draft a safety with this, the second or your second or third round pick, because
Okay.
I don't trust Hafanga. I mean, unless you can get some other safety as out there that can do some of the things that Jaquaski can do, but like I wouldn't feel comfortable with Hafanga being the next guy up.
Yeah, I mean, they did beat the Rams with Dante Johnson playing in his role, so maybe it's Dante Johnson. I don't know. I'm joking. I'm giving you a hard time, but no, I see what you're saying, and it's something that they have to build towards long term. So that might be the direction that they take it. Speaking of long term, um, according to a guy from Denver, Benjamin Albright, he reported that Vic Fangio was out here in San Francisco yesterday, beating up with John Lynch, and he had mentioned there's a possibility of Fangio joining the 49ers in a uh, in a role like an advisory kind of role as an assistant coach, kind of overseeing things. And you know, uh, kind of what's your thought on the possibility of Fangio coming out to the 49ers?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would definitely be a different direction that Kyle normally goes because he normally doesn't go with guys that he doesn't know or have a connection to, which I think it'd be interesting, and I think to me Fangio is like the archetype of the crudgety old defensive coach, right? Like, and
Mm-hmm.
the 49ers don't have a lot of those guys on the staff, right? Although I think Kyle can be crudgety sometimes, but um, uh, I think it'd be great. It'd be great. I mean, he operates a different scheme, so he'd bring a different skill set and a different view, but it also would give you a potential defensive coordinator if uh, D'Amico does end up leaving next year. Which seems like he started to get interviews this year. I mean, I would guess that if he doesn't leave next year, I mean he's trending upward. So it would leave you with a potential guy in the building that could come and be your DC. Now he tends to run a different scheme. Is this the sort of thing where they're bringing him in and be like, all right, well, come in here and learn our scheme and then transition down? Because by all accounts, Kyle doesn't want to be a 3-4. He was pretty adamant when he got the job that he wanted to be a 4-3 team. So I don't necessarily foresee if D'Amico left eventually that they would switch to Vic's scheme. But it, his resume, Fangio's resume speaks for himself. If you can get him in as a consultant role, I'm sure from a lot of different perspectives, it can only be positive. I do think Jack, if I recall, didn't Kyle want to try to get Fangio when he first came in, but then Fangio was kind of spurned because of the whole Thomas Sewell thing, and so he didn't. He went and I forgot where he went, but he went elsewhere.
It was a name that he was talking to when he came in. Um, uh, before they, I think he was trying to get him here, but I think Fangio ended up instead going to the
The
Chicago
Bears, right?
Bears.
The
Yeah,
Bears.
he went to the Bears. So yeah, that was somebody that he had interest in. Um, it's interesting too because obviously he's been a 4-3. He's not thought of as a 3-4 guy. Um, but his 3-4 scheme is very similar to a 4-3 in some ways. It's the way that they align. It's almost like a 4-3. I think it's like an underfront.
Yeah.
Um,
To, to be honest, when you get in nickel, like it's all kind of the same, anyways. Like it's
right,
just
and
base, and you're not playing base that much anymore in the NFL.
yeah, you're not, and plus the other thing too, and the reason I think it might make sense is we saw the 49ers running more cover two scheme
Yeah.
as this season went along, and that's what Fangio really was strong with, right? I think they ran a ton of cover two when he was here back in the early 2010s, 2011 through 14. So maybe they're looking at the skill sets of their players, and they're kind of saying, okay, we need to start to evolve and adjust, and uh, what better way than bringing in a guy who knows what he's doing, has been highly successful as a defense coordinator in the NFL.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Uh, so that'll definitely be worth keeping an eye on. And then the 49ers have been hit with a number of coaching losses this year. They've lost 6 of them so far, pretty much all of them on the offensive side. It was, obviously Mike McDaniel out to Miami as the head coach. Um, Yesterday, they lost Wes Walker as the wide receiver coach. John Embry left. He's out in Miami now as the tight end coach as well. Um, and then there was two assistant offensive line coaches that left. Butch Berry, who took the offensive line job with the Broncos, and another gentleman who was an assistant who went to the University of Kentucky. So when you look at the changes, are you nervous? Is that something that you think the 49ers are going to be able to overcome?
Yeah. Good organizations. This happens all the time, dude. That's the NFL's copycat league, and that's where they're going to get guys from successful organizations, and good organizations are able to overcome this. This isn't like a new trend or anything like that. Um, the 49ers still have their offense coordinator, Kyle, their head coach, Kyle, their defense coordinator, D'Amico Ryans. So those are the 3 centerpieces. And then if you want to talk about their best, they still have their 2 best position coaches, which is Bobby Turner and Chris Kosarick. So I think they'll be fine, and they can possibly upgrade in some spots. I mean, obviously, Lynn was a great hire. I don't know what other names are out there, but they're talking to Vic Fangio. So, and I'm sure if they do bring on Vic Fangio, he's got connections. I'm sure he's got names out there that he would like or he likes. So, I don't think it'll be an issue.
And I fall right in there with you. And you look at the names of who's left. Mike McDaniel is a guy who I could listen talk about football all day long. I love listening to the way that he describes coaching. Um, Fits very well with the way that I see coaches and your role as a coach, and the way what good coaches do. Um, and he spent a lot of time in the scheme, so he knew it and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like Anthony Lynn coming in is going to be able to do all those same things. He's been a successful run game coach in the NFL throughout his career. He did a good job with the Chargers, in particular with Justin Herbert his last year. So I see him probably taking over more of that run game coordinator that McDaniel had, without having an offensive coordinator title. And then beyond that, like you said, Richard Hightower is a guy who wasn't going to be back with the 49ers. That's why they let him go to Chicago. Wes Walker is a guy who I think they wanted to keep, but at the same time they let him take a lateral move to go back home. Debo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk are pretty good players, and I think they'll overcome not having him.
Yeah.
Um, and then Butch Berry and Jens are their assistants on the offensive line, so they still have Chris. Isn't it Firster? Isn't his name First? Chris.
Chris
Uh,
Burke.
Firster, the offensive line coach. So they still have the main offensive line coach. Really, the only other one is going to be Embry. I mean, the position coaches that they lost are all guys who I feel that can be replaced. I understand that the players like them, but the tight end group, I think, as a whole, is kind of underwhelmed this last year. And there was a number of times when the receivers, there was a lot of drops from the receiver crew this year as well.
Yeah, I agree with
I, I,
that.
yeah, I mean, Garoppolo pace on the ball, it's hard for them to hold on to it. No, I'm joking around there, but yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that they've got a pretty good. I think they have a pretty good staff as long as you have Shanahan and D'Amico Ryans. I think everything kind of builds off of that. And the one that you said, and you mentioned the fact that he's not moving on is Chris Kosarick because the uh, the Dolphins have a defensive line coach that they're keeping, and so as long as Chris Kosarick is there, I think that really helps out that defensive side. So you know, I'm okay with losing some guys on the offense because that's where you have the main guys anyway. So, in terms of Shanahan, so I think they're going to be fine without it.
Yeah, and I mean that's what the 49ers have shown they can develop coaches. That if I recall, Wes Welker wasn't the original wide receiver coach, right? He was an assistant. Him and was it Miles Austin? I thought they were two
They,
assistants, right? I think
mm-hmm.
then their original wide receiver coach went and moved on, and then Wes Welker took the job. So I mean, if I recall, Wes Welker was a developed coach. Like he developed under Kyle. Um, trying to, and then obviously the defensive coordinators and all that.
Yeah, no, you're right. It was Miles Austin is Miles Austin, right? That's his name,
Yeah,
and Walker. They were like the duo, and then I think they had. I can't remember her name. There was an assistant that they worked with as well.
yeah,
And she moved on after this year, after the 2020 season. So, yeah, no, I think they're going to be able to overcome the losses that they've had so far. It'll be interesting to see where they go as the offseason goes along. That obviously they're working on this stuff. That's why we heard about Fangio. So just nobody's been named yet, and so it's definitely something to keep our eye on. And when that news comes, you can find it here with me, and I'll be writing about it and everything over at the Press Democrat. So it should be fun. Uh, any other shows you've got going on this week? You, I know you
next
usually.
next week, I believe I'll be on with Ben. I think he said Wednesday, and then obviously Grant show on Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then
Katie
the
Sowers.
Acorn.
Yeah,
Yeah, Katie Sowers. That's correct. Thank you. Yep. And then, yeah, and I know you and I have been talking about making this a regular here on Fridays to come in, and it'll be fun to talk through the off season, and then once the season comes around to come in and get folks ready for the game on Friday. That's so I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, we'll be able to make it a regular thing like we've been discussing.
yes, yeah, sounds good. I mean, I know there's a big game coming up this weekend, and if you guys are into Olympics, there's some of that stuff. I don't think USA's got a hockey game tonight against Canada.
Again?
They no the men's.
Oh, the men's. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to check that out because I have not been. I've tried to follow along with the Olympics, but it's hard because they come on at 5 o'clock out here, and then by the time I usually get to sit down in front of the TV, all the stuff I want to see is already over with, and I don't
See,
feel like waiting around for another 3 hours
yeah,
for it to come
for
back on.
for me, it's equals hard because it comes on at like so late at night. So it's like, oh, you got to stay up to like 3 a.m. if you want to watch something, and that's not me. And then uh, like I'm also sports guy that has to watch it live, so I can't watch like pre-recorded stuff. Like you know. I
Hmm.
mean, I could watch like film football, but I can't like watch it as a fan like pre-recorded. It just because I know it's not live. Like I can't do it, and maybe uh, I know in the past like that's how it was done, right? With the Olympics, you watch the tape delay, but
Hmm.
it's not for me.
Yeah, it's been a little rough, that's for sure. So we'll see. And then over here in the comment section, I've got Matthew telling us that he hasn't watched the Olympics, but then Andrew he jumps on here and says, "Jack, you should have me on for an hour. I'll tell it straight." Well, I'll tell you what, Andrew, I'm going to be doing a call-in show here probably next week on Tuesday or Wednesday. I'll give you some time. I'm not giving you an hour, but I'll give you 5 minutes to come on and show me if you're worth talking to. That'll be fun. You can come on here and definitely. So yeah, and it's Friday. It's almost 2 o'clock on the Pacific time here. So we've had a pretty good group considering the time of day. And just want to say thanks to everybody that joined. And like I said, Coach Johnson and I will be doing this every Friday. So keep it locked on here. If you liked what you saw, hit the like button, subscribe. Make sure you hit the little bell notification so that every time we go live, you don't miss anything. And then get yourselves over to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. Make that a favorite on your taskbar so that you can get to it every day. Try to update at least one article a day during the week now that we're in the off season. So keep it locked into both spots. And thanks everybody for joining. Take care.
Yep, thanks everyone. Have a good day.